Hello, what is up internet people? In today's video I'm going to be talking about 10 of my personal must-do bucket list items for the North Island of New Zealand. So up in Northland, pretty close to Cape Renga, which is like almost the very top of the North Island. So there's an area called 90 Mile Beach and Spirits Bay and Te Paki sand dunes. So all of those things I definitely think are worth a visit and a mention. But Te Paki sand dunes, it's these giant sand dunes where you drive in and you can just walk up the giant sand dunes and basically you can just go sandboarding, and it's like the craziest experience ever. It's like sledding if you've been sledding on snow, but it's on sand, and it's sand so it doesn't hurt. It's kind of scary at first, but it's really so fun, and you can like run and jump and it really won't hurt or anything because it's sand. Like, I've fallen off so many times and you just get it everywhere, and I guess it can hurt if it gets in your eyes, but like you can wear goggles and stuff and like face masks, and it's just really a cool, unique, once in a lifetime, or maybe not if you go multiple times, but it's like a very unique experience that I definitely think you should try. So the next bucket list item I have is Coromandel. So Cathedral Cove is one of those really iconic New Zealand photos. I feel like if you don't know that much about New Zealand, you've probably still seen the photos because they were on like every Windows computer background. But Cathedral Cove is like this giant rock formation thing on a beach, and it's very iconic and there's a lot to do around there. But two things I definitely think that you should do are go to the hot water beach and go to Donut Island. So hot water beach is one of those other kind of touristy kind of things, but basically there's like geothermal activity going on underneath the sand at this beach. So you get shovels and you dig down and you basically just reach like boiling hot sand. And it's so hot it burns the bottom of your feet, but there's obviously waves coming in and stuff, so you kind of like create your own natural hot tub. So Donut Island is not a very touristy thing, but basically in a town called Whangamata, you can rent kayaks and you will do some sea kayaking, and you go out about like 30 minutes to these giant islands in the water. Donut Island is one specifically where there is like a cave archway thing, and you paddle into this little smallish looking cave and you go in, and it's literally an island shaped like a donut. So inside there's like a little beach where you can park your kayak, and then you can swim in this little donut hole basically, and in the middle of the donut hole there is a little rock that you can stand on and jump into the water, and you can swim around and explore the island, and it's really cool. So next up I want to talk about the West Coast black sand beaches. So you can reach these about an hour drive outside of Auckland City, just to the west coast. So there's Piha, Muriwai, Kerikeri, and I think some other ones too, but yeah, those I think are like the main ones that I usually went to. So Muriwai I definitely went to the most because they have really good surfing there. Piha is like definitely the most well known. I also think that when people Google touristy spots in New Zealand, they'll say Piha Black Sand Beach, but I think that's also for good reason because it does have really beautiful rock structures, and if you go around sunset and the water is kind of like low tide, then it kind of looks like a mirror because the black sand reflects the light, and it's very cool. But yeah, so these black sand beaches are pretty cool just because if you've never seen a black sand beach before, it's just pretty crazy because it's literally black sand. And if you do end up going to these places, it brings me to one of my next bucket list items, which is checking out waterfalls. And this one's going to be pretty broad because there's waterfalls all around the country, all around the North Island, but specifically there are some around the West Coast beaches, so I'll just throw some names at you guys. But near Piha Beach is Katikati Falls, and near Kerikeri Beach is Kerikeri Falls, I believe, or it might be switched. All around the Waitikere ranges and Hunua ranges, there's a bunch of falls. So Hunua Falls is a big one, McLaren Falls, Kayati Falls was one that I thought was really cool. Whangarei Falls is another good one. Basically, to give you an idea, usually what happens when you go to one of these waterfalls is they have like such well-marked trails and bushwalks. You just park your car and then there's always signs telling you how to get there, usually how far it is, and usually you walk down some stairs and then pretty much just like through the woods a little bit, maybe on a wooded path, and you see like the giant silver ferns that New Zealand is like known for. And usually there's like a river or a little collection of water where the water is running off to. Sometimes you can actually swim in that water. I think most of the time they'll say danger because either the water is dirty or the water is too strong, or it's just really, really cold. But usually they will give you some kind of warning like that. But you can still, I think, get into them sometimes. So don't quote me on that, but I've gotten into some of them. And at the very least, you can just go and enjoy the view and take some nice photos. So the next bucket list item is Lake Taupo. That's how my Kiwi friends say it, but they say it with a Kiwi accent, so I feel like it sounds weird when I say it. But I think Americans would probably say Lake Taupo, but that's like really wrong, I think. But yeah, again, Kiwis have an accent that I don't have, so don't make fun of me. But basically, it's a giant lake. It's actually the biggest lake in New Zealand by surface area. It's almost like an ocean, which I guess could be comparable to if you're from the States, like the Great Lakes, it's like that. So things that I would suggest doing would be to go and see the Maori carvings on the lake. So the Maori are the indigenous people of New Zealand, and they did some really cool carvings in these rocks on the lake. And I would also say this is probably one of the most touristy things to do also, but again, for good reason. It's obviously a big cultural statement, but it's just one of the most extraordinary pieces of artwork. So you can take day boats out there that I think are pretty cheap. You can kayak out to see them, which is also pretty cheap. We actually rented a very small boat that we could drive ourselves because it was cheaper than getting jet skis. And all around the lake, if you just walk around it, there's little pockets of geothermal activity. So you can actually be sitting on the lake, which is cold, and you can put your feet in like a little runoff of geothermal activity, and it'll be like hot jacuzzi water. I can't tell you exactly where to find those, but you can stumble upon them, and there's also good cliff jumping and other stuff like that all around the lake. So going off this Taupo region, there's a bunch of mountains nearby, including Ruapehu, Tongariro, and this other one that I don't remember how to say. But I'm going to put this in its own category, and that's to do the Tongariro Crossing, which is one of New Zealand's great walks. I think in total there's about 9 great walks, and they're pretty much just like longer walks that could take you a couple of days. But this one specifically we did in one day. I had to actually go on 2 different occasions before I could actually do it, just because of the weather. The first time I went, it was like so foggy and cold and rainy, and there were just a lot of helicopter rescues, and so we turned around because you couldn't see anything. Do plan to at least spend maybe a couple of days in this area, whether it's at the lake or actually trying to do the crossing. So I think depending how you do it, you can either drive there or you can camp out and wake up before sunrise and take a shuttle. Well, I think there's multiple shuttles, but ideally I think you would get a head start and go before sunrise because it's so popular. There's so many people doing this. But it's literally a hike that goes around volcanoes or even up volcanoes. There's different paths that you can take. But on this walk, it's actually basically Mount Doom from The Lord of the Rings. That's where they filmed this. And then you walk up this area called like the Stairway to Hell or something, or the Stairs of Hell. And it is really horrible because you just are walking upstairs for what seems like forever. But basically on this hike, which is a total of like 19.4 kilometers, I believe, you'll get to see this volcanic landscape. At one point, it almost reminded me of what the Grand Canyon like looks like in pictures. I've never been to the Grand Canyon, but you look out and it's just like this crazy reddish, brownish, orangish terrain, and it's so beautiful. But you'll also see like steaming vents and sulfur smoke and crater lakes. And the big highlight for me was seeing, on the one hand, these huge volcanoes, and then also these beautiful, pristine emerald lakes that obviously you can't go into, but they were just so picture perfect and such an unrealistic color. But it's like crazy that nature can actually make that. So on a similar note about geothermal activity, that's definitely something that you should do while you're in the North Island of New Zealand, and that is best done in the area of Rotorua. So there's also a smaller area called Waitomo, which is where you can see a lot of this stuff for free, which is where I went. But two places that I do know of are called Kerosene Creek and Hot and Cold in Waitomo, and those are both free, and you can go and bathe in hot water for free. Also in the same region, I would suggest going to see any of the crystal clear blue springs that are around. So there's one famous one that's actually called Blue Springs, but there's a bunch of other ones. But basically, yeah, you just do a little walk and then you get to go and see these really crazy freshwater, clear spring water, which is so cool to see in nature. And finally, my last two bucket list items are to go to Raglan, Mount Taranaki area. And specifically, Raglan is like a little town and a lot of people go there to go surfing. But I really highly recommend going to check out the pancake rocks that are there. So you can take kayaks out across the ocean. Again, it's sea kayaking, and you'll get to see these pancake rocks that were formed so beautifully, like stacked all on top of one another, and you can just kayak through it, and it's so cool. Finally, last but not least, probably one of the coolest things I've ever done in my whole life is going to see a glowworm cave. So I went to the Waitomo ones, which are the most popular ones. It's a very touristy thing, and it's right near Hobbiton, which is another big touristy thing about New Zealand. But there are a lot of ones that you can go explore by yourself in Northland and just around Auckland region. But I do highly suggest going on a tour if you can afford it, because if you're not familiar with spelunking or doing any kind of caving, then it could definitely be dangerous. There's a bunch of different packages too, but I think the coolest one is like, I think you propel down a hole, which is so scary to me, so I didn't do that. But if you're into that, you should definitely do it. I heard it was very fun. So yeah, you go down into the caves, which are underground obviously, and then you sit in a tube and there's water running through the cave. So you just sit in the tube, and it's amazing because you feel like you're looking up at the Milky Way, but it's actually these glowworms. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. If you have any other bucket list items for the North Island of New Zealand, please leave that in the comments below. And I would also really appreciate if you could give this video a like and subscribe. I'm very close to 1,000 subscribers, and it would mean the world to me if I could reach it. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, nighttime, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye!